Tonight on Bridge City News, it is Pink Shirt Day, an anti-bullying day when people wear the color pink to symbolize a stand against bullies. A disturbing new game has gone viral on social media. Its aim is to harm children. We have the details of the Momo Challenge. And Bridge City News went on a tour of the future home of Cor Van Ray YMCA. Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. There is a warning out to parents about a deadly trend on social media. It's a game which has gone viral, which could have kids harming themselves. It is called the Momo Challenge. Now, warning, the image you're about to see may be disturbing. The game's character tells kids to harm themselves by taking pills or stabbing themselves. The main character warns if the children tell their parents, then their mom or dad will also be harmed.
I'm gonna kill you, Mama, Mama.
The Momo Challenge pops up in a wide range of YouTube children's videos and through WhatsApp. Kids are invited to follow instructions on harming themselves in an effort to meet the creepy Momo character, which is half human and half bird. Reports say so far more than 130 kids in Russia have already killed themselves with the Momo Challenge. For more than a decade, people all over the country wear pink shirts to symbolize a stand against bullying. Ainsley O'Reilly reports on how schools in Lethbridge are getting involved.
Every year on February 27th, people in Canada wear pink to stand up against bullying. Dr. Proby's school in Lethbridge is on board with following this year's theme.
We spent some time focusing on cyber awareness and understanding the importance of being kind face-to-face and the importance of being kind online as well.
They even created some fun artwork to support the cause.
Alphabets, in which they then tore the letters and created kind messages that they put on a key, and we created a giant keyboard.
Teacher and counselor Kathy Kitagawa says that this campaign is not just about today, but a day like this is special.
It's something we pay attention to year-long and really do focus on with our school community, but engaging and understanding during an important campaign like this is always an opportunity to bring heightened awareness.
And for the students, today was not only exciting, but meaningful.
It potentially could stop bullying.
To support the person who's usually getting bullied because he wore a pink shirt that day. And so our whole school does it to just to support him.
For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
The new Cor Van Ray YMCA, based at the ATB Centre in West Lethbridge, is just over $150 million. It represents the most significant investment in a community facility in the history of Lethbridge and is also the third largest YMCA in North America. Loris Alexander has the details.
Plans for a new state-of-the-art YMCA in West Lethbridge have been in the works since early 2017. Those plans have now come to fruition.
We're trying to tell people how great this facility is going to be, but at the same time, all we can offer is sort of artist renderings and that type of thing. At this point, people can come and actually see the facility.
The facility brings a 30,000 square foot fitness center with state-of-the-art equipment. Mayor Spearman said he can hardly wait for opening day.
Well, Lethbridge is one of the few cities that didn't have a leisure center, so tremendous that we will now have one, and I think it's going to be a great central point for West Lethbridge, but I think it's going to entice people to come from the other side of the river to West Lethbridge as well. This facility will be used regionally. People will access it from communities and towns around southwestern Alberta, and I think it's going to be a good drawing card for our city.
Local businessman Cor Van Ray donated $3.75 million to the project and said the donation was a way for him to give back to the community.
This is a phenomenal undertaking when you look at the size of this facility, the engineering that's required, the construction expertise. The people putting this together have done a tremendous job. And it's a huge undertaking. It's a multi-year project, and it's wonderful that it's just months away from completion.
For Bridge City News, I'm Loris Alexander.
According to Alberta Water, there are over 70,000 farmers in our province. Many of them were gathered today at Exhibition Park. Ainsley O'Reilly explains.
120,000 square feet. and more than 10,000 attendees. Today was day one of the Agriculture Expo at Exhibition Park.
This is a premier event here in Lethbridge. Agriculture is actually really important to Lethbridge and its community. We have a lot of businesses here that rely on agriculture, so this is a good event to be at.
Everywhere you looked, there was an exhibit. For farmers, the Ag Expo is like second Christmas.
Nowadays, more than ever, need to make sound decisions, but they also need to prove these things out. And by doing on-farm trials, for example, we can gather the information from different sources, different vendors, and then we can try those out on our own operation to prove it out to see if it actually does work.
From sugar beets to McCain's to Cavendish to the thriving dairy sector, Farm Credit Canada says that Lethbridge is an agricultural hub.
Technology and innovation within the ag community is big. They drive that area of development, and here is a good showcase of what we have from the exhibitors that are here, and come down and look at it because it's a good thing to see.
There was something for everybody, and every booth seemed to have technology more advanced than the next.
Now with our technology, what we do is add a PWM solenoid onto the sprayer on every individual nozzle of the boom, and we'll put a solenoid on there that'll change the duty cycle so we can adjust the flow, and with GPS signal we can anticipate if you're speeding up or slowing down and adjust that duty cycle to keep you on your targeted rate and constantly on your correct pressure and droplet size.
If you want to check it out, the event takes place until March 1st. For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
For men over the age of 40, it is recommended to get your prostate checked every 5 years for prostate cancer. The Man Van rolled into the AG Expo today, offering free baseline blood tests for the disease that affects 1 in 7 Canadian men.
We're testing for prostate cancer. So we do a simple blood test that tests the PSA, the prostate-specific antigen. It's an indicator that can give us an idea whether or not you have prostate cancer. So it's a simple blood test, takes about 5 minutes. We do the testing of the drawing of the blood here, and then we take it back to our lab in Calgary to do the official testing. The Man Van is relied on solely by donations, so we have no government funding. We are sponsored today to be here by Fortis Alberta. We really greatly appreciate all the sponsorships that we do get, but we do rely solely more so on donations.
The Canadian Cancer Society says 21,300 men were diagnosed with prostate cancer in 2017, of which 4,100 died. The group says on average, 11 Canadian men die each and every day from prostate cancer. 3 Lethbridge athletes brought home medals from the recent Canada Winter Games in Red Deer. 17-year-old Joel DeMar claimed the gold in the 60 kg category of judo, and 15-year-old Nathan DeMar claimed silver in the 66 kg category. 14-year-old Evelyn Beaton won gold in the 44 kilogram category. It was a solid event for Team Alberta as our province's athletes earned 13 medals in total, 5 gold, 5 silver, and 3 bronze. The last time Alberta did this well was in Halifax in 2011 when it brought home 12 medals. A new fertilizer terminal is going to be built near Grassy Lake. Federated Cooperatives made the announcement yesterday that a new $41.8 million facility will be built this spring. The 34,400 metric ton terminal will create about 150 jobs and should be fully operational by the summer of 2020. The new facility will have a railway loop track to accommodate 110 car unit trains, allowing it to quickly download the fertilizer. It will also be able to fill a Super B trailer in about 6 minutes. Following a consultation with farmers and farm workers, the province has extended the deadline for new training requirements for commercial drivers to March 1st of 2020. This will allow farmers to meet the demands of the 2019 farming season. To improve road safety, Alberta is introducing a mandatory entry-level training program for drivers seeking a Class 1 or Class 2 driver's license. While the new entry-level training program is encouraged, it will not be mandatory for farm workers who are looking for Class 1 licensing during the 2019 farming season. A Calgary man has been charged with child abandonment after a 7-year-old boy says he was left inside of a cold vehicle outside of a casino for hours. Police say they were called to the Pure Casino Sunday night when the temperature at the time dropped to a freezing -24. Police say casino employees brought the 7-year-old to the office to warm him up. Officers arrested the father, and his son is now in the care of the province. Penalties totaling $15,000 have been dished out from Alberta's election commissioner over the UCP 2017 leadership race. Commissioner Lauren Gibson has leveled two $7,500 fines against Jeff Callaway's co-campaign manager Cameron Davies for obstruction of an investigation. The penalties do not provide any further information of what the offences are under the Election Finances and Contributions Disclosure Act. Alberta's election commissioner is investigating allegations of irregular financial contributions made to Callaway's campaign during the UCP leadership contest. The group plans to appeal the decision. Conservative Deputy Leader Lisa Raitt asked what information Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's office gave SNC-Lavalin about its criminal case. She then pushed Government House Leader Bardish Jagger for more details.
On September 4th, the Director of Public Prosecutions actually informed SNC-Lavalin that they would not be receiving a deferred public prosecution agreement. However, in the audited financial statements of SNC-Lavalin, they indicate that the company was advised by the Director of the PPC in October 2018 that it would not be invited by the PPSC. Who in the Prime Minister's office gave the assurance between September 4th and October 10 that there would not be a problem with the PPSA?
It's once again not surprising that the Conservatives will undermine the work of committees. Once again, it's not surprising that the Conservatives will undermine the work of the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner. Mr. Speaker, they did it for 10 years under Stephen Harper, and today they have chosen a new leader, but it still remains the same party as Stephen Harper.
U.S. President Donald Trump told reporters today that he was having dinner with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. He also said he is hoping his latest meeting with Kim will be equal or greater than the first as the U.S. works with North Korea to denuclearize.
It's an honor to be with Chairman Kim. It's an honor to be together in really a country, Vietnam, where they've really rolled out the red carpet, and they're very honored to have us. And it's great to be with you. We had a very successful first summit. I felt it was very successful. And some people would like to see it go quicker. I'm satisfied, you're satisfied. We want to be happy with what we're doing. But I thought the first summit was a great success, and I think this one hopefully will be equal or greater than the first. And we made a lot of progress, and I think the biggest progress was our relationship is really a good one. And as I've said many times, and I say it to the press, I say it to anybody that wants to listen, I think that your country has tremendous economic potential, unbelievable, unlimited. And I think that you will have a tremendous future with your country, a great leader. And I look forward to watching it happen and helping it to happen. And we will help it to happen.
The Pakistani government has closed its airspace today over heightened tensions with India. An Air Canada flight from Toronto to Delhi had to be turned back over Europe. The flight was in the air more than 12 hours before it landed back in Toronto earlier this afternoon. Air Canada also cancelled a Delhi-bound flight from Vancouver and has temporarily suspended all flights to India. Earlier today, Pakistan carried out airstrikes and shot down 2 Indian military jets a day after Indian warplanes struck inside of Pakistan for the first time since 1971. Leading powers have urged the 2 nuclear-armed rivals to show restraint. Amid the clashes, more Venezuelan military defected as the country's political crisis continues to deepen. Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido has called on the international community to consider all options to resolve the country's political crisis. The country descended into chaos after the re-election of President Nicolas Maduro. The cold temperatures we have been receiving have been wiping out a lot of the larvae of beetles which like to eat our trees. Meanwhile, south of the border, loggers have been busy trying to stay ahead of the game as the emerald ash borer has been chewing its way through trees for close to 20 years.
Loggers are cutting down ash trees before an invasive beetle kills them. The emerald ash borer is gnawing its way through the eastern United States. The sturdy blonde wood is highly prized for furniture, especially in China, where demand has boomed in recent years. The wood is also tough enough for baseball bats, but the ash trees are no match for the beetle.
Emerald ash borer is probably the most thorough killing machine that we've come across in my career over the last 35 years.
Since it was first spotted in Michigan in 2002, the beetle has killed tens of millions of ash trees and has been detected in more than 30 states. Larvae bore tunnels beneath the outer bark, cutting off the tree's flow of nutrients and water. Upstate New York still has unaffected areas. Lumber companies like Wagner are cutting more ash while the trees are still alive to harvest the wood. The beetle can be in a tree for several years before it starts showing signs of decay.
Realistically, when you look at this stand here, it could be here. We're just not seeing evidence of it.
Some see ash following the fate of the American chestnut. It dominated the eastern United States before being decimated by blight more than a century ago. George Robinson is an invasive species expert. He doesn't think ash will be entirely wiped out, but they will be greatly reduced.
The hope is that by collecting seeds and preserving some specimens, there will be a future for the ash.
Ash exports dropped last year amid a trade dispute with China, but the lumber remains popular. This mill is cutting more than ever, until they can't anymore. Michael Hill, Associated Press, Owego, New York.
Nice to feel some warmer temperatures again in our region, but how long will they last? I'll let you know with the full weather forecast details coming up in just a moment. Lots of clouds, but warmer today. Tonight, a chance of flurries developing with a low near -15. Tomorrow, a good chance of snow again with a high near -8. Friday, the mercury will drop to -18 for a daytime high. A high-pressure system returns just in time for the weekend. Sunny and -19 on Saturday. Lots of sunshine and -12 for Sunday. Monday, warming up to a beautiful -8. Lots of blue sky and -5 for Tuesday. Checking the almanac, the average high for this time of year is +3 and an average low of -9. The highest temperature on this date was recorded in 1992 at 22 degrees, and the record low was -34 in 1955. Sunrise was at 7:19, sunset at 6:09. Let's have a look at how tomorrow's shaping up across the country. Expect snow in Vancouver with a high near 3. Snow and 5 degrees for Victoria on Thursday. Increasing clouds at -7 in Calgary. Sunny and -10 for Edmonton. Flurries at -10 for Regina. Expect -13 in flurries in Saskatoon. Sunshine at -10 for Winnipeg tomorrow. Toronto had a snowfall warning today. Tomorrow sunshine and a high near -3. Sunny and -4 for Ottawa. Just a few clouds at -7 is expected in Montreal. In the Maritimes, Fredericton, New Brunswick will be sunny at -8. Halifax, Nova Scotia will also have sunshine, but should see a high near -5. Charlottetown, PEI will be sunny at -10. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect flurries and a high near -5. Last year, when Greyhound pulled its bus service in Western Canada, many Albertans felt stuck with nowhere to go. Video journalist Naveen Day says the void created an opportunity for a local business.
Ever since Greyhound pulled out of Western Canada, there's been a service gap with our seniors and our disabled. One local shuttle company is filling that void.
Shuttle on the Go is a door-to-door shuttle service based in Lethbridge. They specialize in transporting disabled and elderly to their much-needed health appointments.
I was looking to find a new career in January because I had been a courier for many, many years. So I sat down with my brother and some friends and we thought of a new career to do. So we got into this and I took the course at ExecuServe Plus for the 6-week business training. And so when I launched this, it just happened to be September. And it was just pure coincidence that Greyhound was shutting down at the same time.
One of Tony's passengers says the shuttle has made it more possible to keep up with doctor's appointments and visit family more frequently.
I'm not ever feeling like I'm isolated here in Lethbridge and can't get to see my family or, because I'm not driving. If I didn't have this service, I wouldn't be able to go and visit my family in Calgary, see my grandson. I wouldn't, I would feel trapped here then, and that's just not a happy place to be.
For Bridge City News, I'm Naveen Day.
The president of Hudson's Bay is stepping down. A news release from HBC says Alison Colville's exit will be effective on March the 1st. The company says for the time being, key executives will take over until a successor is named. No reason has been given for Colville's departure. She also oversaw household goods brand Home Outfitters, which will be closing 37 stores this year. HBC previously said the closures will help reduce costs, simplify its business, and improve overall profitability. Our country's inflation rate tumbled to 1.4% last month. That is down from 2% in December. Stats Canada says the decrease was mainly due to a 14.2% drop in the price of gas compared to a year earlier. It says that offset a 13.2% increase in the cost of fresh vegetables, while mortgage interest costs were up 7.8%. The average of the Bank of Canada's 3 core inflation readings actually held steady in January at 1.9%. A U.S.-China trade agreement is far from being completed. Officials say it will take a lot more work, particularly on enforcement. We have the latest now from U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer.
We have engaged in a very intense, extremely serious, and very specific negotiation with China on crucial structural issues for several months now. We are making real progress. If we can complete this effort, and again I say if, and can reach a satisfactory solution to the all-important outstanding issue of enforceability, as well as some other concerns, we might be able to have an agreement that helps us turn the corner in our economic relationship with China.
Now, here's a look at today's markets. We have breaking news for you this hour. Citing threats and sustained pressure, former Justice Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould told the Commons Justice Committee today that she was being pushed by the Prime Minister's office to stop a criminal prosecution of SNC-Lavalin. Wilson-Raybould said various officials urged her to take partisan political considerations into account, something she felt was improper. We'll be following this story and have more for you tomorrow. American pro-lifer and public speaker Peter Heck stopped by our studio recently, and he had a powerful message for abortion clinics. Hear what Mr. Heck has to say next. But first, here's a look at what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. World Day of Prayer 2019 is taking place Friday, March 1st. If you'd like to be a part of this global prayer initiative, come to the Salvation Army Community Church in Lethbridge at 2 p.m. Refreshments to follow. Plus, the Church of the Ascension Anglican Church in Coaldale will also be having a special service at 7 p.m. For more information, visit worlddayofprayer.net. PBR Canada's Elite Monster Energy Tour is coming to the NMAX Centre on March 1st and 2nd for the Bridge City Chrysler LA Towing PBR Challenge. Come see Canada's best bull riders alongside of the league's top international athletes square off against the toughest bucking bulls from across the nation. Tickets start at $30 and are available by calling 403-329-7328 or purchase online at nmaxcenter.ca. Join the Lethbridge Community Band Society as they celebrate music from the silver screen, taking place Saturday, March 9th at College Drive Community Church in Lethbridge, beginning at 7 p.m. Conducted by Josh Davies, this concert will feature a variety of brass instruments not often seen in traditional North American concert settings. The performance includes music from King Kong, Braveheart, Apollo 13, and much more. Tickets are $15 and children 12 and under are free. Purchase yours today at CASA or online at lcbs.yapcity.com. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
Abortion. It is a topic that has become very taboo to speak about right here in our country. But the reality is in Canada, approximately 100,000 abortions take place each and every year. In fact, it's legal to have an abortion right up to the moment of birth. To discuss this very controversial topic is Peter Heck, a public speaker, pro-lifer, and a teacher joining us from Kokomo, Indiana. Welcome to Canada. Welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you very much. First time here. It's great.
Justin Trudeau, our Prime Minister, has gone on record saying pro-lifers are really not in line with what we believe as Canadians. I think a lot of Canadians would disagree with Justin Trudeau.
I hope so.
What would you say in response to our Prime Minister and his remarks?
Well, I think it's startling when you recognize really the foundation points of Western civilization, of which Canada is a key integral part. All of Western civilization predicated upon these ideas of the natural rights of man. And for a Prime Minister to suggest that holding to that is somehow out of touch with where society is, I think is a profound commentary, at least on where he believes the direction, the future of, and I don't just say Canada, I feel like Western civilization, North America, where we are as a people, and it's alarming to say the least.
Wasn't it scary, the fact that you can actually have an abortion right up until the term, like the baby's about to be born?
It is.
That's murder.
It
I mean,
is.
Think about it. Where is the United States headed when it comes to abortion?
Well, you've seen in recent days with the passage of the Reproductive Health Act in the state of New York, followed by the proposed bill in Virginia that was shot down, but then Governor Northam had gone on to a program sort of like this and had defended the notion of, okay, well, you have a baby that's born, the baby will be kept comfortable, and then decisions will be made. Well, that's infanticide. And so one of the things that pro-life activists have said for years is essentially every argument for abortion becomes an argument for infanticide. And so it is, typically those on the opposite side will say, well, this is slippery slope argumentation. It may be, but now that we're seeing it play out, I think we're seeing the consequences of a bad thought that has been allowed to germinate and grow.
Life is so precious. We all know that, right? And especially, I mean, I'm a father myself. Yeah. You a father as well?
Yes, 3 kids.
So, you know, I mean, I held my son and my daughter in my hand when they were first born, you know, cut the umbilical cord. It was such a blessing, the gift of life. How did we reach this point, Peter?
Well,
how did we get this far?
To me, and it's impossible for me to address this or any issue without understanding that our worldview is the basis of everything. And so when I come from a Christian perspective and I understand that there is a God that exists, that he gives every being his image, that's what makes life inviolable. Well, you have a society and a culture that is rebelling against God's authority. And we read in Scripture, when man does that long enough, eventually God turns you over to a depraved mind. You do what ought not to be done, Paul writes. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the logical consequence of man stumbling around in the darkness, trying to form his own sense of morality, completely detached. Our intellectual, moral moorings have been ripped free from their foundation. And so it's why you have laws in the state of California that forbid the killing of a pregnant woman and her child. You can get 2 counts of murder there, but the same state would allow a pregnant mother to go in and kill that life, and it would be regarded as a moral choice. It's nonsense. Everybody understands it's nonsense, but we pretend otherwise because we're flapping in the breeze of moral relativity.
Now, some states in the United States say as well that you have to have an ultrasound when you're pregnant just to show the baby growing inside your belly before you decide to make that decision of having an abortion.
Right.
Let's get your thoughts on that.
My state, Indiana, is one of those states, and it's part of, I think it's been called the incremental approach of pro-life activists for the last several years. Since our law in 1973, the Supreme Court ruling, we've been fighting it since then. But the idea of we may not have enough Supreme Court justices to overturn the Roe v. Wade ruling, but we can at least begin to chip away at it. And so ultrasounds, you look at the statistics of how few women choose abortion when they are presented with an ultrasound that shows what's living inside them. I think it goes, and I don't want to say as a testament to, because that makes it sound like I'm applauding it, but the success of the pro-abortion activists at clouding and creating some sort of mystery as to what is conceived in the womb. It's why whenever I have the conversation with folks about this issue, my first question is, what's in the womb? I need to know what is in the womb. If it's not human life, then we can have this conversation about, but if it is, so tell me what's in the womb. And it's very difficult for someone to ignore what we now know scientifically about that.
So what do you say, Peter, to a woman who says, this is my body, this is my choice, especially if I've been raped, I don't want to carry this seed all the way to term.
Sure.
You know, I'll be traumatized. And some people say, well, you give up this child for adoption, right? So many needy families out there. But she says, again, at the end of the day, this is my choice.
Right.
What do you say to that person?
Well, first of all, there's 2 things to say. Number one, anyone that's gone through a horror like that, I always say to many of my pro-abortion friends that I actually think that I probably favor harsher penalties for the rapists than they do. So in no way are you taking it easy on the horror that's taken place. You're addressing the reality of what rape is and the assault that took place. That said, any sane moral society does not punish a child for the sins of his or her father. And the idea that the innocent child, and that's where we are today in the United States, where states have banned a man rapes a woman, he cannot receive the death penalty for his decision to rape a woman. But the innocent child that is the byproduct of that act can receive the death penalty. That's a society that has lost its moral grounding.
How about a woman that has her life in jeopardy?
Sure.
You choose between the baby and the child.
Right.
You know?
One of the things that
that's a scary decision you have to make, especially if you're sitting down as a husband, a potential father with the doctor. You choose your wife, or do you choose your unborn child?
Right. The issue whenever someone brings up the life of the mother, and I've always stressed this, and I always initially get pushback, there has never been and there never will be a case where the mother's life requires the intentional killing of the child. When you have a child, there are very rare cases where carrying the child to term and delivery would imperil the woman's life. There's no question about that. And in those cases, what a godly, moral, I believe sane society would do is to remove the baby from the womb in a non-violent manner, save the woman's life, and then use all of your known medical technology to attempt to save the life of the child as well. Never is there a medical circumstance where you have to intentionally dismember a child in the sanctuary of the womb in order to save the mother's life. And that, again, has been a lie that's been peddled by the other side. And I always ask, why? Why do we need to lie about this issue? Let's address it for what it is and deal with it intellectually, philosophically, morally, by telling the truth. And then we can have it out as far as an intellectual exchange. But whenever I hear, well, you have to save the woman's life by dismembering a child, it's not true.
How about some of the cultures around the world that specifically want to have boys being born, and when they hear or they see from an ultrasound that it's a girl, they abort the child?
Right. One of the things that amazes me, we have going on right now in the United States on Twitter and all social media, the Me Too movement, the idea of women's rights and the rights of females and all of these things, which, by golly, I'm all for.
Yeah, it's very important.
I'm wondering, where are those voices speaking out against these intentionally destructive and aggressive policies targeting women around the world? I just, it's sad, it's sick, and it's the actions of a lost world.
Let me ask you something. How do abortion rights activists respond when they see images of children being ripped apart and thrown away in a garbage can? A human life, a precious human life like that. When they see those images.
I don't, I think it's one of the reasons why there are such harsh restrictions on where those images can be portrayed and seen. City councils banning them from billboards and from public mailers and those sorts of things.
We've had the same thing here in Lethbridge, as a matter of fact, pro-life ads taken off the bus benches.
Right.
And, you know, off the buses as well. After 100 email complaints, we have 100,000 people here in Lethbridge.
Right.
So it's a small portion.
But the squeaky wheel, and not just the squeaky wheel, but sometimes the well-positioned wheel that has friends in the right places. But to your point, to your question, I think largely they avoid those images, or they say that it's appealing to emotion, which is always interesting given that this is the same side that will always bring up the exceptional cases of rape or the life of the mother, which appeal to emotion. I think it's important to that those images are seen so we grasp what it is.
Let me ask you something, Peter. What role should the Christian church play in protecting the lives of these unborn babies?
I think it's interesting when you look at the history of Germany during the Holocaust era. There are literally thousands of ministers and churches throughout the country, but you remember two. You remember Dietrich Bonhoeffer and you remember Martin Niemöller, two names of those who spoke up against the Holocaust and what was happening there in their country. I think there's a lesson to be learned there, that when the history of our time is written, God's champions are going to be those who weren't afraid of what men would say, what men would do, the consequences that man can. Instead, chose to say, look, we stand for God, therefore we stand for life, and we're not going to compromise on that. And I think that any Bible-believing Christian has a responsibility to articulate those principles. We have a better way. We know a better way. Why would we keep that to ourselves?
Here in Alberta, the provincial government has brought forth by law this law and legislation creating a bubble zone around abortion clinics in the big cities, Calgary and Edmonton, not allowing pro-lifers or people to say, hey, you're making a mistake here, from protesting, getting too close. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's interesting that we always refer to this as the pro-choice movement, largely because the reason I say it's interesting, if you believe in choice, if you believe that a woman should have the choice to abort or not abort, wouldn't we want that woman to have all of the information, access to all of the ultrasounds, all of these things that we now know? Why would we be blocking women from having access to those things? Why would these abortion clinics not want all of that literature out there if all we care about is truly choice? What that reveals to me when you see those laws passed, it's not choice that we're after. It is the promotion of what has become the sacrament of abortion, which is a bit macabre, if I could use that term, because that's essentially what we're experiencing.
I have friends in Edmonton, which is in northern Alberta, well, central northern Alberta here, and they had to wait for many years to adopt. And they had to end up, because the waiting list was so long here in Canada, they adopted a child from the States and from China. Because the fact that there weren't enough children to adopt here in Canada. So maybe if less people were having abortions and maybe bringing the babies to term, giving them up for adoption, we wouldn't have this long waiting list.
The notion that, well, these are unwanted children, is preposterous. There is no child that is an unwanted child. Someone wants every child, and even that being said, I always feel like it's necessary to state this. Even if there wasn't a line of people waiting to adopt, that doesn't justify killing other human beings. This notion that murder is a solution to our social problems, that isn't a decision that sound, rational minds will come to.
Or convenience. It's like, no, I don't want to have a child right now, so let's just get rid of it.
I was, years ago, I was on the radio, and a caller to the program suggested that if I wasn't willing to adopt all of these children, then I shouldn't be speaking out about abortion. And I simply posed this question to them. I said, okay, I have 3 children at home. If I said right now, either you adopt my children or I'll go home and kill my children, let's say that you can't, you're not in a position to adopt them. Does that somehow morally justify me going home and killing my children, or would you still say that that's wrong even though you can't? He got my point. He didn't want to get my point, but this notion that terminating or discarding human life is somehow a solution to our problems of unwantedness and malnutrition and these sorts of things. You and I both would be run out of town on a rail if we proposed nuking the third world so that we could take care of the poverty problem. Because we know as a society that the destruction of human life is not a solution to those problems. And yet for some reason we suspend that logic when it comes to life in the womb.
So what needs to really change in people's mindsets to abolish legalized abortions? In Canada, the United States, other countries around the world. Does it start with education, maybe when our children are younger?
Well, I think that there's a key element of that. I would answer the question, it has to be a cultural change. I think for too long we've tried to solve this from the top down, get the right judges in the right positions, the right politicians, and politicians will follow where the culture is. I mentioned California earlier. How is it that you can have a law that is so hypocritical and completely inconsistent? Well, it happens because that's where the culture is. If the culture accepts it, that's where politicians will be because they want to be elected. So until the culture changes, which is up to you and I as believers and churches to go out and transform people's hearts, until that happens, I think you're trying to plug holes on a sinking ship, and they're popping up too many. So
you can also vote out the government that doesn't maybe fall in line with your ideologies too and your beliefs, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And political activism certainly has to be part of it. I just hope that folks realize there's so many people that say, well, I've only got one vote. I can't make a difference. You may only have one vote, but you have access to your neighbors and your coworkers to talk to them about this issue that they'll never hear you or I speak to this issue, but they'll hear you because you're their neighbor. And I think that we all have a part to play in that regard.
Peter Heck, author, public speaker, pro-lifer, joining us from Kokomo, Indiana. Thanks so much for coming by the studio today.
Thank you for having me so much. God bless you, and God bless Canada.
You too.
Thank you.
It's the winter time, and a lot of times this time of year we get the winter blahs. It affects a lot of people, including seniors, who a lot of times are shut in at home. Joining me now at the desk is retired Pastor Abe Block, who's also a senior in his own right. Welcome back to Bridge City News.
Thank you, thank you. Good to be here, Hal. Yeah.
So Abe, let's talk a bit about what seniors go through during the winter months. I mean, the best part about winter is Christmas, right? But how about some of the challenges the seniors really face nowadays?
Well, there are lots of challenges for seniors. One of them is, of course, the weather. Seniors hate the winter from the standpoint of the insecurity of walking. And many of them have canes and some of them have walkers. That's a handicap in the wintertime, anytime. And I have noticed, though, in particular, one place where seniors get hurt a lot, believe it or not, is on a churchyard.
Really?
Yes.
It's a lot of the ice or snow there?
Because it seems to me to save finances, a lot of churches don't really clear their yards that well.
I see.
And so seniors come out of the yard, you know, and they're getting out, and some of them have walkers and stuff. First of all, walkers don't work well in that way. Canes don't work well in that weather. And any slip for a senior on the churchyard, boom.
And recovering is a lot longer too for seniors too, right?
Way longer.
You break a hip, I mean, whatever bone, it takes a lot longer, doesn't it?
And the thing is, our bones and stuff are fragile, much more so. They become brittle, obviously. You know, it's just the way it is. And so we as seniors struggle a little bit with that. And along with the weather, of course, too, is you don't get out as much because of that. And then loneliness creeps in. And
well, it's harder on the bones too, isn't it? The cold weather, the cold temperatures, you feel it a little bit more.
Well,
aches and pains.
I am one
That's
of
why
those,
you fly south of the winter, right?
Yeah, you're right. But I'm one of those lucky ones. I'm always hot.
Oh.
Yeah. Being as it is, I'm always hot, which is kind of good. But I know that my wife, for example, is always cold.
Right.
She doesn't like the winter at all because of the cold, and so we need to turn the heat up in the house.
Right.
And bundle up like crazy. Like when it comes to walking, we like to walk every day. Well, in the winter, we don't walk outside, you know, because of conditions and stuff like that. So we'll find places inside where we can walk, but we love to walk.
Maybe a treadmill, perhaps you can use that too. Or?
Oh, very much so. I think a lot of seniors have the treadmill. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think, speaking of that, I think that's an important thing for seniors to realize they need to do. They need to be at least a little active in order to keep the body functioning properly, to keep the mind functioning properly. And I think exercise in the winter is very important.
Maybe a little bit of shoveling too?
Well, yeah, but not too much.
Right.
I know that's a challenge.
How do you know when enough's enough? Just listen to your body?
Listen to your body. I think too many of us try to do it all at one shot, and we shouldn't. I know my wife and I moved into a condo situation. It's a ground floor condo, which is nice because we have yard, front and back and stuff. But all of our shoveling is taken care of, all the irrigation is taken care of, all the lawn cutting is taken care of. I thought I would really miss it because I love doing that kind of stuff.
Especially lawn cutting, the smell, a little bit of the exercise, the fresh air, the sunshine.
But I've enjoyed this simply because we also have grandchildren, children, great-grandchildren, and grandchildren all across Canada and into the States. So we spend a lot of time on the road going to visit them. Another thing seniors can do. Kids have work. They can't always come to visit you. You have time. You can go and visit them. We do a lot of that, and so it's nice to have this taken care of. I'm not always looking for somebody to cut my grass, to mow or to get rid of the snow and stuff like that.
Do we find many young people coming around door to door? I mean, to earn a few extra bucks. I used to do that as a kid. My buddies and I would take our shovel, go door to door, knocking on the doors, shoveling driveways and sidewalks for, I don't know, $10 or $5, whatever it was back then.
I think it's a great idea, and I know that my grandchildren do that. In our area, of course, it's kind of a seniors complex, and like I said, well, it isn't a seniors complex, but it seems a lot of us seniors live there. But it's done for us, and so I don't see it in our area. But yeah, that does happen.
How about younger people helping out seniors when it comes to getting groceries? Do we see much of that these days?
I think it used to be more than it is nowadays. Nowadays, you've got this skip the dishes kind of a thing.
Right.
And you've got all this, you can phone in and get your grocery shopping done and just go and pick it up.
Right.
So you've got a lot of that. And so that doesn't happen quite as much anymore. And I think quite a few seniors are taking advantage of that. And I think a lot of others too. But I do feel that it's important for seniors to have focus and to have purpose.
Right.
And so they need to find that within the ability that they have.
How about volunteering?
Volunteering, I think, is a phenomenal way to do it. My wife and I volunteer twice a week at a thrift store, for example. We also volunteer in the church. We volunteer with our kids and grandkids. And we volunteer, for example, I'm president of our condo association. You know, there are so many opportunities, if you're just looking for them, where people could use your help. And as long as you have the ability to do something.
So it really is a win-win. You're helping somebody else.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, you're keeping mentally alert, sharp, focused, right?
Yeah.
And contributing back to the community?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the involvement also, for example, I love to teach Bible studies. I think that helps my mind stay alert. I do a lot of reading. That helps my mind stay alert. And I think anything that you can do within the limits that you feel comfortable with, mind you, anything that you can do to do that, to keep yourself focused and alert and with a purpose. I remember one couple I talked to, this was years ago, and they went out for breakfast every single day. And I said to them, don't you get sick and tired of that? That's our focus to start every day.
Right.
We don't want to just lie in bed or whatever. We know that we're going out for breakfast, and that gets us started in the day, and then at least we're in progress already. But I think too many seniors just sit around the house and watch television and do stuff like that.
Or maybe mope around.
Or mope around, yeah.
Know, maybe a pity party.
Become discouraged. Pity party. Become discouraged.
I can't do that. I'm such and such an age. Yes, you can do that. Get up, walk around, be more active. Like you said, get back to your community.
Yeah.
You know, maybe go read to other seniors, people who are maybe 10 or 15 years older than you are, who might be shut in, right?
I think we can easily do more sometimes than what we think we can do. But I had a mentor of mine years and years ago. We were talking about church, and we were talking about being involved in the church, not as a senior, but just as a younger person. And he looked at me and he said, it's amazing how many people come to me and say, I can't do that. And my question is, have you tried it? How do you know you can't till you've tried it? But you see, the problem is this word failure, and I think that applies to seniors. The word failure sticks in our minds so often.
What about confidence when it comes to driving during winter conditions? I know many seniors will say, you know what, or at dusk. You know, I can't see quite as well. I don't want to drive at that time. Wintertime, I hate driving. So they shut themselves in for 4 or 5 months of the year.
Yes.
They're not going anywhere because
Yes.
they don't trust themselves behind the wheel during snowy and icy conditions.
Well, I think there's safety in that, and if the ice conditions are that bad, and if your visibility is that poor, that's one thing. But you don't have to drive long distances. Keep yourself active by just taking short little distances in your vehicle. But I know, for example, I talked to my sister who just moved from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, beautiful area.
Back to Canada.
What? Why would you leave paradise?
Hey. Yeah. Well, she lost her husband down there, and she's been down there for, I don't know, 15 years or something like that. And her family is up here. Her children and grandchildren are up in Canada, and she has a lot of siblings, brothers and sisters.
And we have a lot of mountains
They're
here
in
too. We have a
Ontario.
lot of beauty here as well, right?
We do over here,
Yeah.
but she lives in Ontario.
Oh, okay.
And so she sold her car down there, and I talked to her just the other day, and I said, so what are you doing about a car? She said, I'm not getting one until spring. I said, why not? She said, I'm not going to start off in Canada in winter. I haven't driven in snow in 15 years. Right. So maybe that's a smart idea.
Did she ask if you still put the chains on the tires?
Yeah, right.
Steel studs? Remember the old days, the steel studs?
I did not realize that you can still have studs in your tires here. I thought
there
they'd
you
been
go.
outlawed.
Right.
But they haven't been.
Abe, how important is it, you know, I mean, you're well into your, you're 81 years young.
81 years old.
81 years
Yes,
young.
81.
How important is it for you and for other seniors to really impart some of that wisdom and life experience to the younger generation? You know, to help them learn some valuable lessons along the way and say, look, this is the road I went down. Maybe this isn't the road you necessarily should go down. You know, just impart some of that wisdom and life experience with younger people.
The challenge with that, Hal, is, some of the people in the church that I attend right now have talked to me about that. You know, do we do a good job of helping or getting the wisdom from these people? You know, not our generation, our world caters to the youth. And I think they've pushed the seniors who have that wisdom and experience, they've pushed them out of the way. And I think sometimes the churches are doing the same thing. We cater to the youth, and then we have all these seniors over here who have a lot of ideas and wisdom and stuff, but we don't use it. And I've been encouraging the people in my church, you know, don't be afraid to ask. We don't need positions. That's the difference. I never need another position in the church. I've had lots of them. But come and ask me. And so that's the challenge. Do the young people want it? Am I pushing myself if I try and suggest it to them? Or do I sit back and wait till somebody asks for it? That's the challenge. To find that medium where you're free to offer it, but it would be nice if you could be asked. You feel better that way rather than, you don't want to give the impression you're all smart and everything and you know you're going to force it on. No, you don't want to do that at all.
But why do you think it is in Asian cultures, in particular in Japan and China, seniors are held in such high regard, such high esteem? We lift them up. But here in North America, like you said, a lot of times seniors are kind of pushed to the side.
I wish I had the answer
Different
for that.
mentality completely, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I wish I had the answer to that. I like that idea over there, you know. And if we could at least have a happy medium, put it somewhere in the middle. But our society, Hal, by and large, caters to youth in athletics, in music, in everything. I mean, you've got some of these guys that have hung on in music, you know, till they were older and older, and that's fine. But most of the stuff caters to the youth.
I was thinking of the Rolling Stones. Their first farewell tour was 1969.
Exactly.
And here we are, you know, how many years later?
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
And, you know, there's some good stuff that seniors have to offer.
Right. What about colds and flus? This is the time of year many people are sick, even around here, around Bridge City News. We're missing a few of our regular team members here. But it's even, a lot of seniors are even more susceptible because their immune system may be even weaker.
It is.
Right?
It is. And the immunity is one thing, but even the whole idea of the lungs in particular, can't take the extremes anymore that they used to as you age. And I notice that even with myself, I have to be a little more careful. I'm not sure how some guys do it, but for example, you know, this is getting reflective up here. And I find in winter, for example, I have to wear a hat. If I don't wear a hat, I'm running the risk of picking up a cold because that's where the heat of the body really escapes. And so I think for seniors to be careful, for example, for guys like my age, I don't, but I know a lot of guys that do and should, wrap a scarf around your neck, you know, to be more careful about the difference in the temperatures up there.
You should also be careful too if you're cold as a senior when it comes to fireplaces, especially a lot of the wood-burning fireplaces, right? The challenges there with the embers and not cleaning it up properly and the flu.
And all of those things that I think pertain more so to seniors. As you age, your immune system weakens. As you age, your bones weaken, become more brittle. As you age, the mind even weakens, it seems. So whatever we can do to strengthen those on an ongoing basis, just to avoid some of this other stuff, I think that's good.
We've talked about some of the negative aspects of growing older, but Abe, why don't you share with our viewers in our closing moments here what you've really enjoyed about maturing and getting older?
Well, I think for one of my things is the responsibilities begin to lessen. Responsibilities directly, but responsibilities for interaction, for relationships, for passing along what you know. I think those are good things. But to me, one of the biggest satisfactions still is to be involved. I don't want to be sitting on the sidelines. I don't want to be sitting in the bench.
Be active.
I remember when I retired as a pastor and I came to the church I'm at now, a lot of people that used to be my parishioners at one of the churches all attend there now, and they came and said, when are you going to preach? And I said, I'm not going to preach here. We got all kinds of good preachers over here. I'm going to sit and listen, but I can do Bible studies. I can teach over here. I can be involved. to me, not having the responsibility and the headaches, but having the joy of helping people.
Awesome. Retired Pastor A. Block, thanks so much for your time today and joining us here in studio.
Pleasure to be here.
On behalf of all of us here at PCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and have a great night.